Sometimes it is hard to remember that you are not the only one. You are not the only one struggling with depression. You are not the only one dealing with anxiety. My mom used to tell me that the world did not revolve around me, and that used to leave me wondering, well, who does it revolve around? My world revolves around me, and yours revolves around you. So how can many worlds work together as one? I believe the answer to this question is by compassion. Compassion is an emotion followed by a strong desire to alleviate human suffering. It is a noun. We hear about compassion every day, at school, at church, during fundraisers. But how do we live it? We hear about Good Samaritans on social media, on YouTube, in history. But how do we become them? How can we use our passions to alter the course of the world? How can we save lives? How can we change compassion to being a verb, not just a noun? I began self-harming around the 6th grade, age 12. I was diagnosed with anxiety in 8th grade. Anxiety grew into depression, which developed into ideation about suicide. I began counseling per my request, but did not invest in it until later. I fell deeper into my destructive behaviors. I would yell and fight. I would threaten myself regularly. All I believed I had was a small group of friends. They were my makeshift family. In the middle of the school year, my parents showed up at my school and told me to clean out my locker. They had spoken to the principal earlier in the day, and they were taking me to a new school. I had to say goodbye to my friends and the family and home that I believed I had had there. For a long time, I was angry at my parents. I hated them for taking me away from my school. I was in a dark enough place that they had me sleep on an air mattress at the foot of their bed. I wasn't allowed to be in the bathroom for over 5 minutes. My door wasn't allowed to be closed. I was miserable. I wanted to die, and I needed compassion. The first class of my new school on Wednesday morning during my private orientation with the principal, I was a mess. It looked like I had applied my mascara to my cheek. I had been crying throughout the entire orientation, and on my way to class, a girl stopped me in the hall and introduced herself. Her name was Isabella. She asked me what class I was headed to, and it turned out we had class together. She sat with me for the rest of the year. It is highly unlikely that she realized how impactful that was to me. She gained no recognition, no prize. She treated a complete stranger with love, tenderness, and kindness. She helped me because of a desire to alleviate my suffering. She was my Good Samaritan. She made compassion a verb. Because of that, I was able to regain a hope for my future, a hope for friendship. I was willing to give this new school a chance and make a new life. It turned out that switching schools was the opportunity I needed to be free from unhealthy behaviors and thinking patterns. During my time on the air mattress, I made the decision to tell my parents that I wanted to die. I expected them to write me off as dramatic and not give it a second thought. But instead, my dad sat in front of me and held out his arms. He asked me to come to him. I did. He and my mom held me that night. No words were spoken, and that was exactly what I needed. I am alive because of that decision. From that point on, I began intensive counseling twice a week for 2 hours. I began to meet with my mentor, Cindy, and still do today. Unfortunately, there were still students who believed that death was the only option to alleviate their suffering. During my road to healing, one student after another was taking their lives at my old school. I had deep empathy for these students as I had recently been there myself. I was compelled by compassion to alleviate human suffering. That began my search for others with the same desire. One of the boys who had taken his life was named Caleb. My parents had held him as a baby, and it hurt them when he took his life. This particular death impacted my family, not just the people around me. And though I never knew Caleb, I wanted to change the world because of him. My mentor, Cindy, also knew this boy, and I was having a conversation about him with her. I asked her why people took their lives without trying to find a reason first. She told me that suicide was a puzzle. She said that what worked for one person may not work for another. Sometimes the pieces would not fit, and other times they would. She told me that everyone had a piece in this puzzle, including me. I thought about this for the rest of the night. I asked myself, what is my piece? And I asked my parents if I could create a website that night. They said yes. During my years of self-harm, I had a list of names above my self-harming objects, my reasons. It helped me to remember that by hurting myself, I was hurting others. And eventually, it helped me to quit self-harming. This sticky note became the first design of my puzzle piece. It became a reasons worksheet, a personalized suicide hotline, and later expanded into the pledge, a promise to life. After lots of discussion, we called my puzzle piece Project Reasons. The website is projectreasons.org. Today, Project Reasons is a teen-driven suicide prevention 501c3. Our student board spans across 7 schools with 12 members who meet on a monthly basis. We speak to teens about coping skills, the power of stories, the importance of relationship on a peer-to-peer level. We also speak to adults to help them provide some insight into what their teen may not be telling them. This year, we had our first annual mystery dinner, produced and put on by the student board. We had an outpouring of community support, supporters who were driven by compassion and a hope for a better future. We are also about to release the Project Reasons mobile app made possible by a grant received last year. This app will include an artificial intelligence agent who is programmed to direct students to resources in their area. It will also have videos. The videos will be interviews of students. These interviews will be a source of hope, a reminder that you are not the only one. Others have come out of similar struggles. We are excited about the future of what teens can bring to the solution in partnership with adults. The 12 student board members of Project Reasons dedicate their time, energy, and hearts. Why? Because of a strong desire to alleviate human suffering. Teens suffer from loneliness, despair of losses, self-hatred, a lack of self-worth, depression, suicidal thoughts and behaviors, and so much more. Project Reasons fights to stop these sufferings because compassion has become our verb. I began it because I saw entire schools crippled with the pain of another death. 3 others joined because their best friend was one of the students who had taken his life. Another joined to stop suicide from reaching its talons into our class. 2 more because they saw pain and fear and they stood prepared to battle it away. And still more students come, driven by compassion, ready to say enough is enough to suicide, ready to bring a message of hope. They are ready. We are equipped with our stories, with compassion, with dedication. They are no longer merely admiring the legends of heroes and heroines doing great things in the name of compassion. They are doing it themselves. I would love to hear your stories. Please come and chat with me. I also want to thank you for choosing the fire in your hearts towards changing lives. Our society can tend to be overly focused on self-achievement and forget the power of compassion. They forget that as humans, compassion is written into our very being. But it is inside of us. It is simply waiting to be activated. So how is compassion moving you to action? Now go and be the change that the world needs. Thank you.
Macy Rae Klein.